Hey guys, today we're going to be talking about limited run games potentially censoring a game release, and Super Rare Games' new shorts idea had a lot of people outraged, so we'll talk about that and the steps they're taking to correct it. Where you can go to pick up some out-of-print Vita games tomorrow, June 17th, and finally we'll be talking about this game that I'm playing, Horned Knight. I'll have all the details at the end of the video, but for now, just enjoy the gameplay while we go over these topics. So first up, Super Rare Games. About this new concept that they're calling Super Rare Shorts. They were going to be limited window pre-orders for physical games that won't be available anywhere else. No digital release. Just the one physical pre-order and that's it. They are supposed to be smaller indie games that normally wouldn't get the recognition that they need to sell enough copies to break even. So Super Rare Games is going to give the developers the funds that they need to make the game happen in exchange for exclusive publishing rights. Now, to ensure that the game release has enough demand, they will limit the release to that one physical pre-order and that's it. This was a problem on a few different levels. Number one, they're preying on fear of missing out, but in this case it's to an extreme, because if you don't buy their physical release, you won't have any option to play this game in the future. No digital release. Two, these are games that presumably wouldn't make enough money on their own, so people are afraid that that might say something to the quality of the releases. And the name Shorts sounds like it might apply to the length of the game or the amount of time put into making it. And third, we don't know if these games are any good or anything about them. If they aren't released digitally, how will game reviewers be able to offer their opinions on a physical-only game that hasn't been printed yet? Nobody wants to be stuck with a rebranded tic-tac-toe game, or I mean, what if the release turns out to be one of the most addictive games on the planet, but only sold a few thousand copies? Now, I know a lot of people are against buying digital games anyway, but there are a lot of good reasons not to have a physical-only release. Usually, the argument for physical is for preservation, but that shouldn't mean to completely eliminate one of the distribution channels. On the other side of the coin, they are funding games that might not otherwise have a successful release, and off the recognition of that physical release, new developers could potentially jumpstart their careers this way. Regardless of all that, the good news is that Super Rare Games listened to the feedback, and here is what they've come up with to correct the issues. In response to the physical-only concern, they say this: preservation. All Super Rare Shorts will be released on itch.io roughly 6 months after our initial physical release. This developer-focused PC storefront will assure that games are digitally preserved and accessible to anyone that wants them in some form if they've missed out on a physical edition, with the assurance that you can own it forever thanks to the storefront's DRM-free policies. This can also give developers a shot at seeing if their game has a digital audience after the physical version has gained some attention. As originally planned, we do not retain IP rights over any shorts game we fund, so developers are welcome to make sequels, spin-offs, or use identical ideas for new games with whomever they want, whenever they want. Now, I do like that they went with a DRM-free platform. That's actually pretty cool. But I would like to see the games released on the eShop after the 6-month period too, with the potential of eventually going multi-platform. Now, I found the part about IP rights particularly interesting because it sounds like while SRG doesn't own any IP rights, they do hold the publishing rights to the one very specific release, which makes sense. But I wonder just how extensive that is. Can developers release the game themselves as a director's cut later on with additional levels? I'm just kind of curious what the specifics are. Now, in response to the quality of the games, they say this: quality assurance. When we say shorts, we don't necessarily mean that they are short games playtime-wise. We expect shorts to be the same quality as our usual physical releases. They're just new and may sometimes be a bit more experimental. We're only funding games that we ourselves find fun. And finally, in response to the other concerns, they say this: Quantities and pre-order window. We're extending the pre-order windows from 4 weeks to 6 weeks, and as originally planned, quantities are unlimited. We will print as many copies as there are orders. We will give plenty of advance notice when a shorts game is going on sale. It will not be a surprise. We'll have a trailer and tons of info for each game when pre-orders open, a live stream of us playing the game, plus a Q&A at the start of / during each pre-order window. And we will be supplying reviewers with early copies at the start of / during each pre-order window to give their unbiased opinions, so you won't be going in blind. And really all that sounds good. Again, I think the only thing I would like to see is a digital multi-platform release after the 6 months. Some people, like myself, only buy games on consoles. And there are certain games that I just won't buy for $30 physically, but I'll drop $5 or $10 on a digital console version. So let me know what you guys think about all of that. I'm sure I'll have something more to say about it after we see how the first shorts release goes. Now, I also wanted to talk about this potential limited run games censorship issue. So you may have heard Limited Run Games purchased the IP of an old cheesy 3DO game called Plumbers Don't Wear Ties. The game is absolute garbage. It's basically a short choose-your-own-adventure slideshow, or I guess you could call it a very short visual novel that uses photographed images and is fully voiced. It has terrible writing. The story reminds me of something from a really bad adult film. For the most part, the game is censored, but there is a cheat code you can enter to remove the censors if you want to see something worse and more taboo than the most violent of video games. That's right, I'm talking about partial video game nudity. So, Limited Run Josh was asked about this on Twitter, and it seems he wasn't even aware of the cheat code. When he was informed about it, he had this to say: "I'm pretty sure I won't be allowed due to the ESRB. Adult-only games can't release on PlayStation or Switch. 3DO didn't concern themselves with any of that, so the code to disable the censor image was okay there. We'd leave that code in on PC though." So it looks like I won't be picking this game up after all. The whole point for this game back then was to see some of that very taboo video game nudity, along with a cheesy plot. So what's the point of preservation on a game that isn't even good when you aren't even going to preserve the whole game? My suggestion would be for Limited Run Games to open a European distribution center. This would solve 2 issues. 1, they could ship games to the European customers much cheaper, and 2, they could release adult games physically on the Switch. Or an easier route would be to do what EastAsiaSoft does. They have a European publisher handle the adult releases. That's why we have to go to Funbox Media to buy Waifu Uncovered and Crawlco Block Knockers. Again, just another reason why I love EastAsiaSoft. They actually care about little details like this. Now, speaking of EastAsiaSoft, tomorrow, June 17th, 11 a.m. Eastern Time, several out-of-print Play-exclusive Vita titles will be available in limited quantities at videogamesplus.ca. They will have limited stock of the following titles: Dungeons & Bombs, Task Force Campus, Unmetal, Xenocrisis, Nicole, Astro Aqua Kitty, Takotan, Nighton Plus, Chasm, Gambare Super Strikers, and Guard Duty. So be sure to check them out if you missed out on any of these releases. And finally, Horned Knight, the game I'm playing now. I wanted to play this game when I started suspecting that this might be one of the unannounced upcoming EastAsiaSoft Vita releases. Now, I could be wrong on that, but there are a couple of things that led me to believe this. First, this is a Too Awesome Studio game, which was released around the same time as another Too Awesome Studio game, Luckslinger, which we are getting on the Vita. Secondly, it looks like it would easily run on the Vita. And if East Asia Soft was in talks with their studio trying to find games that could easily be ported to the Vita, this would certainly fall into that category. Third, I took a look at East Asia Soft's website, and they've already published Horned Knight for the Switch and PlayStation 4. So it would be no stretch of the imagination to assume they might have ported it to the Vita as well. Now, all of that being said, visually, looking at this game, I was hoping it would have gameplay similar to Devious Dungeon. Unfortunately, that's not the case. You don't collect gold to buy upgrades or level up in this. It's strictly a basic platformer. There are 32 somewhat short levels with a boss fight at the end of each world. You should be able to unlock all of the trophies or achievements within the first 20 minutes, but of course, gameplay extends much further than that. Digitally, it is currently available on the PlayStation 4, Switch, Xbox, and PC. MSRP is $6 US. Alright guys, that's going to do it for today. Let me know your thoughts on anything: Super Rare Games new shorts, limited run games censorship, or are you going to try to pick anything up from this Vita sale? I'd love to hear from you. Thanks for watching. Until next time, I will see you later.